you can listen to these, thank you very much for showing, because either you got up at the crack of dawn, or you had an extra night in a hotel, so thank you for doing that. But it's only us, so anyway, let's see what we can do. Phil and I were asked by Transport for London to basically go to a bunch of other cities and find out, like Kevin was saying, find out from the other way, what have people done and what can we learn from them? You know, there's obviously a lot to be learned. Just one thing I'll say at the outset, one of the interesting things about it really was the fact that we were asked to go. I see Andy Mayo, he came to one of the cities with us, and other people around here who were involved as well. And we said, oh, that's okay, yes, we'll go for you. And actually, Phil, because we're sad like that, said, well, actually, we're going to go, we're going to ride, we're going to speak to people. It could have been a desktop study. We said we didn't want to do it that way. It's why we only have one shirt left each, because we lost all our shirts on this. But it's just great to find out what goes on. But what we said was, why are you, Transport for London, asking us to go and ask some other people, so we'll filter it back and give it to you? So we were glad to say that we did get, I think, about 15, maybe 20 other members of TfL staff to come with us, because we felt that actually going places is critical. Two reasons for that. One is you have to ride. You have to experience it for yourself. And we did roughly about 2 days in every city we visited. And also you have to speak to the people who were responsible for that. Because same as you would be, if somebody from another country had sent to you and said, look, can you answer this? We had huge spreadsheets of questions. And you're going to say, no, I have a job to do. I can't fill in your pro forma. I might, if you're lucky, answer a couple of questions and then link you to a couple of reports. So we felt we would get more information by actually speaking to the people who were responsible in the cities we went to. And also, what's more important, what you often find is, you find out or start asking questions in conversation with those guys you didn't know you wanted to ask before, about specific detail, or whatever it might be. The cities we went to are, well, we just stayed in London. That's London there. There are some others. Northernmost one is Stockholm, then you've got Malmo with Lund close to Copenhagen, where we had been previously. Over in Ireland, we went to Dublin, we went to Amsterdam earlier in the year, but Utrecht specifically for this. The two German cities are Berlin in the north, Munich in the south. We went to Nantes specifically, and indeed Seville in Spain at Kevin's recommendation, in fact, and others. We also had a look at Cambridge and Brighton in this country. Some stuff. And over there, Phil went to New York and Minneapolis, and Mark Strong, who many people know, is in another room doing something else at the moment, went to Washington, D.C. in it as well. And actually we went to, it's not on here, is it? No. But John Parkin, Professor John Parkin also went to, he was on holiday in Christchurch at the time, and so that's the best, it's not saying much, it's the best cycling city in New Zealand, so he got some stuff up from there. This is just some basic information. And that's why everything is approximate when it comes to cycle mode share, other than specific things from our census around journeys to work. And I think just one of the things that shows is just how important it was for us to go. We can talk, if you wish, in discussion about why we went to certain cities and why we took a long time arguing what those should be and what we might learn from different cities. The key thing is either to learn from cities that have higher cycling mode share, or bearing in mind a lot of stuff that Kevin was just saying, that we can learn from because of how they have changed what they are doing. New York has a still very low overall mode share, but obviously it's a very obvious comparative megacity in certain times to London. And we want to look at how the process of change there, even though they're starting from a similarly low base. All sorts of different reasons why we went to different places, and I say we can discuss that if you like. This is probably my favourite photograph I took. You can tell it was taken in a hurry, actually, from my iPhone, from the whole study. We will have some photographs which we can use perhaps to illustrate certain points later in the discussion. That was in Utrecht, and I think the thing I love about that is that the bike is knackered. It's not just because of this board that's flat. And actually, look what he's cycling in. That's a substandard painted lane. All right? Shocking. We wouldn't do that in this country, or rather we do it all the time, but we wouldn't advise we would do it. But it's on a street where the traffic flows are very low, the speeds are very low, and something that Kevin alluded to as well. Actually, this is what people expect to encounter in the streets, and the culture of street use, because of better infrastructure everywhere else, just as a matter of principle in that city, does mean that in some places you kind of don't have to try that hard in terms of what you spend on your infrastructure, partly because you've managed it very well. Also, it's just a joyful photograph. That's nuts. I immediately ran out and offered them helmets, but they didn't seem to want them, which shocked me. Some key findings. When Phil and I got back, He said, well, that's great. We've been to all these cities. What on earth do we do? Because there's tons of detail. What can we really distill? And all along, although obviously we were hired by Transport for London, I think we're conscious of what, another point that Kevin made just at the end of his presentation, is this city-by-city thing. Cities like Leeds, like Newcastle, where I'm from, kind of hate the fact that London leads. But if it doesn't have to be London, but if it is, why wouldn't it lead? Why wouldn't we be able to look at one city or another? So in a way we might look at Cambridge or York, possibly Brighton and others like that. It's great that we can do this. So what we felt in doing this for London, we are hoping that it'll be good for others. The report is nearly there, we believe. I have a copy in my bag, but it's not. It probably has a tiny bit of finessing to do at the moment. But what were the big lessons? First thing is something that Kevin touched on as well, but we found out as well. No one was able to say, we've done the numbers, this leads to that. It just doesn't happen. Okay? Which is incredibly frustrating because we'd like to do that, especially to transport people. Only you could, we do this technique and a modelable outcome will come. That doesn't mean to say we don't know that certain techniques are better, but you cannot, as it were, prove it through data sets that just aren't the right kind of data sets to say a specific type of infrastructure will lead to a specific kind of just benefit, and not least because cities are complex places and there are lots of different cultures. And even, you're right, okay, that's okay, but where there is tons of cycling, whatever they do there must be better, isn't that right? Well, interesting that if you look at some of the mode share stats, Cambridge is pretty level with Utrecht in a certain respect. So, and even the guys from Cambridge City Council would say we nailed it. Now, it's a completely different type of city, of course, and what they have done in Cambridge is made it very difficult to travel to, around, or through the centre by motor car, which obviously that's a big thing you can do as well. So it's not that they've done nothing, but you wouldn't look at Cambridge and say, on the streets, and say, that's the best possible infrastructure. So, again, it gets a bit complicated. This is critical, though, absolutely fundamental. And again, it comes back to, I think, to something Kevin was saying about where do you get the changes. If conditions for cycling, if cycling is not considered an ordinary, everyday mode of transport, then we're knackered, to be perfectly honest. And I think that comes back outside of London, especially certainly outside of cities, you will find generally that people think, just people, again, that population that never cycles, it's what it's for kids and cycling sports guys, isn't it? You either do it in lycra or in bright colours on a trike. That's, and actually just ordinary cycling, they're just nothing. You know, that's kind of where we're at. We do not have that traction yet. Increasingly we are finding it in some of our cities, but the idea that this is an ordinary form of transport. We found that different forms of governance make it easy to do that. City governance, there are different types of models. Some make it more easy where you have a stronger strategic authority. We found as well that cities that are serious about cycling don't just go and do stuff so they can have an output, as it were. Yeah, we built X miles of cycle lanes. They have to be good cycle lanes. They're worried about outcomes. So there's no tokenism. We spent this much on cycle lanes, which are actually 0.5 metre wide and just dotted paint. We did find that actually the legal and regulatory frameworks are key in achieving broadly cycle-conducive road use cultures, street use cultures. We thought that was quite important. There are a few things, for example, that we can't do in this country. Actually, there are a number of things we should be doing in this country if we were adhering to our highway code, but we've long since done that. We did with our highway code when we were 17 years old. We know no one's ever going to ask us again, so we just carry on and get used to what we're doing. And I think perhaps just at another level, one of the most important things arising from the study, and it's a difficult one to translate, but very important, was just the difference. And you know, whatever you find, where there are cities with high cycling proportions, even if you might not say the infrastructure is of the standard that you're seeing in the Netherlands, saying things like that, it just felt so much more comfortable. And it's a combination of so many different factors. Finally, and this is a point we were reminded almost by everybody we ever met, which is this is how we've done it, these are good ideas, good principles, good techniques. Now, what are you going to do in your city? Not cut and paste. You can cut, as it were, ideas and principles and techniques. You can't just have a nice design template and drop it on your street, probably, because each street is different. You can't do this for anything, I would say that. Phil, do you want us to take it through? What we did was, that's some just high-level stuff. This is also fairly high level. I think this is what we'll touch on now. We'll just go briefly on some of the details later.
Yeah. So we think as John said, we tried to identify what we felt was common to the cities that we've been to. And these are not specific to particular types of infrastructure, but they're common threads as to where the city's operated. So this is obviously crucial. We know, in a way, we kind of know what to do. We know there are certain techniques, and the barriers to implement those techniques is very often, as I'm sure we all know, it's the political will to do them. It's the political will to move that piece of car park, that crucial 2 or 3 spaces that make it possible to achieve the cycle track, the cycle lane, whatever. And that's absolutely fundamental. But we also found that in addition to that, it's not just political, it's technical leadership. That political systems change, there are elections, people in and out of office. The cities that seem to be doing best are those where there is a core of officers that understand about how to make cycling work and stay with it over the medium to longer term. And we saw that in New York, we saw that in Dublin, we saw that in lots of these cities. I think we are beginning to get that in the UK. I think we've got that to some extent in Cambridge, for example. We've got the makings of it in Brighton. We're getting there in London. But I think that's